So for more on this, let's bring in RBC Capital Markets Global Head of Commodity Strategy and CNBC contributor Helima Croft. Helima, it's good to have you back. Good morning.
Good morning.
We got so many headlines. There's what Brian's talking about. There's Mexico trying to say when they're going to get power back. You got shutdowns from various corporates. What's the bigger story to you right now, the impact on oil output or the electric grid?
I think the big question is really with this extreme weather event is really like what's going to be the duration of this crisis. I mean, it's unprecedented, in terms of what we're seeing in terms of both the demand side and in terms of the supply side. I mean, we have this demand shock, Brian was talking about. You've got 4 million people now without power, and you have the simultaneous, shut in of production. I mean, there are reports this morning that we have 2 million barrels of Permian production offline, associated gas production offline. Now, I think it's important to keep in mind is that we could have these weather conditions ease over the next couple of days. And we have these discussions when we have these weather events about is there going to be long-term damage? What is the duration of the crisis? And so I think it's really going to matter, when weather conditions improve, when we get an improving story in terms of prices.
Do you think, to Brian's earlier point, that this is episodic, it happens every couple of decades? Does it change the discussion of infrastructure in general, at least in Texas, long term? Or is this something that will come and go and we just move on?
I mean, we're seeing extreme weather events, and I think it is raising questions about, what is your power supply going to look like? I mean, we have wind turbines also down as well. And the question we saw, again, over the summer in California with the wildfires is, what is your electricity mix? And can you deal with these weather events? Like, what is going to be the mix that you need to provide stable supplies of power going forward? So I think it's going to cause that kind of discussion that we were having over the summer in California. Like, can you rely so heavily on renewables? What is the role of natural gas in providing electricity? So I think it's going to keep those conversations going. But again, I think the key thing is how long are we looking at this weather crisis? Is there going to be any long-term damage? Is this going to be a situation that starts to ease in the coming days?
Yeah. Helima, I mean, I've also seen the reports about solar being impacted in Texas, and obviously that's a state that is a big provider of solar energy as well. I've also got so many questions about those electricity price spikes and what that means for utilities, because some utilities in the country are very regulated and some are not. But nonetheless, when I look at that price on natural gas, $3.12 right now, I mean, obviously natural gas tends to be very volatile and it tends to move with the weather. How sustainable is it above $3? And given what that means for other commodities like coal, what does that do, I guess, to the electricity mix?
I mean, again, our base case for, Q1 was averaging like 277. So this is certainly higher than what we anticipated. I mean, we did have a high case scenario of 315 for gas. I mean, again, I think the really interesting question is going to be, do we get a situation where is this the beginning of extreme weather events for the winter? Is this a sort of one-off situation? I think that's going to be, again, really determinant is how do we get out of this weather event? Is this something next week where we're talking about, back to the 70s in Austin, or is this weather event longer in duration?
So that's all it's really going to end up being about. I mean, I just looked at the weather for Houston. It does hit the 50s and 60s, Helima, in a couple of days. Are we going to stop talking about this as a news event by then?
Well, what's interesting is, are we going to have, again, more weather events? Like, again, we think about the wildfire discussions that we saw in California over the summer, and that led to a lot of debate over renewables. Can you really transition to a 100% renewable system when you have these extreme weather events? Like, what do you need as a backup? What do you need for your base load? So again, even if we get out of this event and we get a return to milder weather conditions, I think the discussion about what is your energy mix going to look like and what role can renewables play, what's the role of natural gas, that discussion is going to continue as Biden is really focused on this energy transition.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.